This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, you're encouraged to like and share them on Facebook because it's time for the African American Scene, presented by Howard Insurance and hosted by Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. I haven't had the open mic because I've had guests the last few weeks. And the last time we were together, I began talking about the socialism lie. So we're going to get back to that because I never got all the way through that subject. That con job that's been put on you guys about all Democrats or progressives wanting socialism. But first, I got a couple things I want to address before I get into that. Steve Forbes, I got your letter. And you're amazing quoting scripture, trying to justify your position about racial matters. Here's my statement to you. Do not send me any more letters unless A, you put a return address on there so that I can respond to you, because this is about the fourth letter you sent me with no address so that I can't respond, and B, don't write me any more letters until you have read America's Original Sin by Pastor Jim Wallace, who happens to be a white guy. So you need to read that. You read that, and you can send me another letter if you have a return address on it. Otherwise, not acceptable. Second issue, which is of some importance to me. Tucker Carlson said last week that the whole white supremacy thing is a hoax and it is being used for a power grab. That is the most idiotic, ridiculous, unenlightened statement that I can think I have heard in a while. It's just moronic and stupid. Let me talk to you a minute about that. And I'm going to speak from my perspective as a black man in America. When I talk about white supremacy or racism, I'm not trying to grab any power. That's not my mission. My mission is to get our piece of the pie. I want to see my grandkids get a piece of the pie. My son to be able to get a piece of the pie. We have earned that right as Americans, as we don't get any more American unless you're Indian or you came over on the Mayflower as an African American. We helped build this country. And we certainly are entitled to the benefits of it, but not for free, but for equal opportunity, which in many cases does not exist. I will tell you personally, and I think I've said this, but I haven't said it probably in a few years now, I hate affirmative action. Hate it. And I'll tell you why I hate it. Because I don't think any man is better than me. And I'd be more than willing to compete with any man for any job and at any performance that I'm engaged in. But I am wise enough to accept the fact that we have to have it because the playing field is not level. But I do hate it because I am a competitor. I'm an ex-athlete, a fat one now, but an ex-athlete. And I never thought when I walked onto the court that the guy across from me was better than me. He might be better than me, but I'm going to play him as hard as I can play him to the bitter end. And anybody knows me knows that. And I'm going to bump him, bang with him, whatever it takes to try to be successful. But there, the rules are clear, and there's a referee. So that story by Tucker Carlson, that statement by Tucker Carlson is ridiculous. And that does not represent what I feel and most of my friends feel when it comes to black people, white supremacy, and racism. We're not looking for power. We're looking for opportunities. Fair opportunities for our kids and our grandkids. That's what it's all about. And not to be impeded because of the color of our skin, or not to be impeded because somebody doesn't like us because of the color of our skin. That's the issue. It's that simple. It's not a power grab. And I got another guy that calls up here every once in a while, Chuck, and he's got a very similar thinking when it comes to stuff like this. He thinks it's some power grab. I want my grandkids to have an opportunity to compete and be successful on their merits. And I don't know what can be a problem with that. I'm all right, I'm off of those two things. Now let's get back to this socialism lie. You have been duped into believing that any change in the current economic system is a change that is geared towards socialism. Just not true. I believe in markets. I am a businessman. Let me read something to you from Robert Reich, who I happen to think the world of. His statement is, the market system is a human creation. Rules have been shaped by large corporations, Wall Street, and wealthy individuals in order to channel a large portion of the nation's total income and wealth to themselves. It is not about taking people's money. It is about how to design the rules of the market so that it creates a fair distribution on its own. I can't say that any better than he did. I don't want to take your money. I don't want to take your money for my grandkids or my son. I just want to have a fair and equitable distribution. So now, if you feel threatened because there's somebody else out there that looks different than you that is competing for a space in the marketplace, oh well, I don't feel sorry for you. That's it. That's the way the cookie crumbles. There's no apology for that. Now, I want you to think about. I want to give you some things to think about. You are concerned about somebody like Cuccinelli is now talking about, immigration when people can stand on their own 2 feet and make their own money, blah, 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 blah. You know how many people came here who couldn't stand on their own 2 feet and have contributed mightily to our economy and to our country? No, we should not be feeding people who are not industrious and who are not working. I'm with that. But if they are, then what's the problem? I demonstrated to you about 2 or 3 years ago. I did a show, and the average person is on public assistance 14 months. That's the average. I know that blows your mind, but that's the true average. Now, are there people out there on the system longer than 14 months? Yes. Are there some people out there that take advantage of the system? Yes. Are there crooked accountants? Yes. Are all accountants crooked? No. You get my drift? Don't be ridiculous. Now, we spend more money on defense than the next 10 countries combined. And if you want to call up here and get after me, that number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590 on anything I've said thus far. Yeah, so what are we doing with money, spending money like that on defense? And here's the part that I've been trying to get you guys to understand now for about 3 years. You want somebody in the White House that has bravado and machismo. That's not what we need in the White House. We need Einstein in the White House, because this ain't about machismo and bravado. This is about thoughtfulness, about internet, about being creative and coming up with solutions that haven't been thought of before. This is why we need to explore changing our economic system. And when I posted that I was going to have this discussion, I got some feedback from some of my Facebook people. And here's a statement one of my Facebook friends made. I don't believe your money should be taken from you and given to people who don't want to work. I have literally never encountered anyone who believes this. I vote for that. I haven't. I haven't either. I just have a massive moral problem with a society where a handful of people can possess the majority of the wealth while there are people literally starving to death, freezing to death, or dying because they can't afford to go to the doctor. Fair wages, lower housing costs, universal health care, affordable education, and the wealthy actually paying their fair share would go a long way toward alleviating this problem. Somehow, extreme right-wing conservatives believe that makes us a communist. I don't know. That doesn't sound like socialism to me. It sounds like there is a quest to have fairness. And we have Steve on line one.
How you doing, Rudy?
Okay.
Hello, Rudy.
Yeah,
Yes.
he can hear you.
You there? Okay.
Yeah.
You know, this country, I'll be 70 years old this Sunday.
Uh-huh.
So I've seen a few things. And one of the things that I've noticed about this country is when I was growing up in the country, in the boondocks, everybody helped everybody. If a neighbor got sick, we took them food, we mowed their lawn, we helped them every way we could. We were united then. We are no longer united. We no longer look out for our neighbor. We're only looking out for ourselves based on a bunch of hocus pocus information that's not true, but we're too lazy to check it out. So when you get right down to it, who's to blame for the situation? Because they won't move off their butts to do anything. They want, let the legislature do it. Well, we've seen how well that worked out. So I think it's time to let the people go back and do it.
Steve, I wish that I could say there was something you just said there that I disagree with, but I can't disagree with anything you said, because the only way things are going to change is if people get up, and I too remember how growing up in Philadelphia, everybody looked out for everybody. We had
Exactly.
a little lady down that lived on our block, and she was older. We all looked out for her. We put her trash out. If
Yep.
she needed something done, we ran over there and
Yep.
did
We
it.
shoveled their snow off their walk.
Yeah,
We raked their lawns, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, today I got accused at the eye doctor of being a Democrat. And I said to the guy, no, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm American. I said, I don't share either party's views, but I'm an American. And he didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
Because, you know, everybody's so used to being on one side or the other side of the fence. They don't understand that if you take the fence down, you can all get back together and make it work again.
I would like that, and nothing would make me happier because I think I have said this more times than I can count. I think we are at our very best when we can synthesize the ideas from the right and the left and come up with a solution. We're at our very best then, because the right doesn't have all the answers, and neither does the left.
No way. No way. There's nobody that smart. You know, I'm serious. Everybody's worried about getting reelected, and they're worried about what their base is going to say. What they better worry about is what their grandkids and their great-grandchildren are going to have to live like from what they've done.
Oh, my God, yes. Oh, yes.
So, you know, that's what I worry about. My daughter, my granddaughter, they're not as tough as I am. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
But that's why I worry about them, because they're not as tough as I am. And I say to them all the time, hey, listen, guys, you got to toughen up a little bit, you know. This ain't the land of the free and jolly as it used to be. You've got to be paying attention and be focused now.
Yes, very true.
So we'll see. Well, I'll let you go so you can have another caller, and it's good talking with you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. And you know, while we're in between phone calls, I just want to share with you guys. I am about a little over the third of the way through Michelle Obama's book. And you talk about something interesting. And you get a keen insight into her growing up and her earnest action to achieve, and you also gain some insight into former President Obama. So if you're looking for something to read, I would recommend that you take some time and read that book. It's just awesome. And I'm reading it now every single chance I get. And we have John on line one. Yes, sir.
Rudy, how are you?
Okay.
It's your old friend John.
Yes, sir.
Rudy, you know, I hesitate to call you sometimes because we think so much alike and we agree on a lot of the same things. And I always said, if two people think alike, one is needed. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I hear you, John.
But, you know, I grew up in a very poor neighborhood, and, you know, we were a poor family. It was very mixed. It was, you know, every ethnic group, and you could imagine, you know. And one of the reasons I think that we helped each other in those days is nobody was better off. No one, you know, I mean, some were a little better off, but I'm saying is that we didn't have real, you know, rich and real poor in my neighborhood. And no one was trying to get what you have, and they were right there to help you. When our power was out, they gave us electricity. When we didn't have food, they gave us food, you know, and vice versa. So I think things have changed because there's just two extreme levels of what's the word, wealth. You know, that's one of the reasons. And of course, the big reason is we've got the head of this country, the leader of this country, dividing the country like it's never been divided yet. I don't think it was probably this bad in the Civil War.
Listen, I agree with you, but John, let me
Yeah.
tell you, I'm going to use my father as an example. My father would have died and gone to hell before he collected a welfare check. Just wouldn't have. He would have worked 20 jobs rather than collect a check. But let me tell you this: you better not say anything negative about somebody who was down on their luck. He'd smack you upside the head. That was forbidden. Now he had his high standard for that, but he didn't allow you to look down your nose at anybody. That was forbidden. He wouldn't tolerate it. So, and now we have too many people now that look down their nose at people who are less than them. But anyway, go ahead. You were saying?
Oh, well, not to go back into my childhood or anything. I had a very loving, very caring mother, and siblings. But my father was a merchant marine. He didn't have a formal education, but he traveled, all over the world, and he was a drinker, and a lot of times he would lose his ship in a foreign country, and there'd be no income, and he was mainly the reason that we suffered, financially, and occasionally, our clothes was from a secondhand shop, and the whole thing. I mean, I'm not crying, we all turned out pretty well, but my mother always made sure the house was clean and we were fed, and the bills we paid. And in those days, even the local markets, they let you run up a little tab, a bill.
Yeah, they did. Yes.
You didn't have. He was just a man that never should have been married. Never should have had children. But you can't change that. That's a long time ago.
Well, thank you, sir, for calling. Appreciate your
all right.
Appreciate your insight.
All right.
Okay.
Take care now.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Be good. And Winnie, my friend, how are you?
Hey, Winnie.
Yeah, how you doing?
Okay.
Good. Yeah, a long time ago, neighbors have looked out for one another in my neighborhood also. Like somebody need an egg or a cup of sugar or butter or whatever,
Absolutely.
stuff like this. Yeah, but
Absolutely.
they don't do that no more. People
No.
don't do that no more.
Nope.
They looking out for Steve, right? They looking out for themselves. All about self.
Yeah.
That's how they is. I didn't really have time. What happened to the stock market? And they say went down 800, dropped 800 points. What happened?
Well, I think some of the backlash is because of the tariffs that he keeps telling us that we're not paying for, that we are paying for. But yeah, I think some of it has to do with that, and then some of it has to do with the currency that's on the market now too. So.
Currency. I saw on CNN they talk impeaching Donald Trump. That gonna happen?
I think he'll get impeached. I don't think he'll get convicted because the Senate is the majority Republican, unless they uncover some earthquaking news. But I do think he'll be impeached.
Okay, so that sounds like Rudy House. So he gonna be gone before he's 4 years out.
I did say
I
that.
never
yes.
know.
Yeah, I've been saying that all along, and I know. Listen.
Yeah.
He's gonna go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're trying to get rid of him. Mm-hmm.
Well, he's trying to get rid of him. He's getting rid of himself with his bad behavior. But anyway. But thank you, my friend, for calling.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We're going to take a little break. And if you want to call in and comment, that number again is 340-1590. 340-1590. I'll be glad to entertain your thoughts.
Serving the entire Treasure Coast, Howard Insurance and Associates in Port St. Lucie offers a wide variety of insurance products, along with the very best customer service. Whether you're shopping for the best homeowners coverage at the most affordable value, contact Rudy Howard's team at Howard Insurance and Associates. If you need coverage for your vehicle, call Howard Insurance and Associates, 343-9878. That's 343-9878. Maybe you're planning to add a boat, motorcycle, or RV. Call Howard Insurance and Associates for your free quote at 343-9878 and get the coverage you need at a cost that will fit your budget. For home or business, auto or recreational vehicle, choose Howard Insurance and Associates, 600 Southwest Darwin Boulevard, Suite 206, Port St. Lucie. And for your free rate quote, call them at 343-9878, 343-9878.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
We now return to the African American scene. Once again, here's your host, Rudy Howard.
Here's another thing that I want you to digest. We have 25% of the world's prison population. 25%. Can you imagine? Do you know how expensive that is? We've got 25% of the world's prison population. And here's the irony of that. You don't want people to have health care, but you pay for health care for prisoners. Prisoners get health care. They get dental. They get vision. They get all of those things that you don't want everyday person to have. And that's costing you big time. Big time. So think about that. So when you talk about where your tax dollars are going, you worried about somebody getting some food stamps that they're not supposed to get. And in the meantime, you just flushing money out the back door on all kinds of other things, especially with some of the things that corporations do that are beyond my comprehension. For example, here's another thing I want you to think about. In Social Security taxes, once you make more than $139,000 a year, you don't pay Social Security taxes anymore. I'm not sure that I understand that. Now, they did make an adjustment, in all fairness, to be completely candid. They have made an adjustment that if, in fact, you're at a certain level of income, you pay more for your Part B coverage under your Medicare. But why is there arbitrary cutoff at $139,000? I don't understand that. Why are we doing that? So the rich people continue to get rich because there's always an exception. If there's anybody can call up and explain to me why a $139,000 cutoff on Social Security makes sense, I'll be glad to listen, because it makes no sense to me. Because as an employer, if you're paying somebody that money, you're still paying Social Security tax for that individual who's making that money. How can a multi-billion-dollar company pay zero taxes? Can you explain that to me? And you worried about somebody getting some food stamps that that you think they don't deserve? You've already seen all of the hullabaloo, the big calamity and the discussion about Amazon. They made $19 billion and paid zero in taxes. $19 billion and zero in taxes. Now, I will say in Amazon's case, they almost you can almost give them a buy because they have significantly expanded some of their operations, and they're coming here to our county with the distribution center. But it makes no sense. $19 billion in revenue and zero taxes. And one more thing, and then I'm going to take this call from Jay. Why should we have to provide Medicaid for multi-billion-dollar companies' employees because they don't pay them enough money to have health insurance? Now, I want you to put your thinking cap on for a second. Put your thinking cap on. What they're doing is passing off their costs for health insurance to us. Think about that. And we got Jay on line one. Yes, Jay.
How you doing? Good afternoon, Rudy. I'm glad to talk to you, man. Everything you're saying today is absolute truth. It just brings back a lot. That's why people are talking about how they grew up and everything. It kind of brings back a lot. And probably your background is probably close to mine. We went through the struggles together, dealing with all kind of nonsense. Even though we were qualified for jobs, probably more qualified than the people that's already working there, we still had to prove ourselves, no matter what it was.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it is now in America. And it's waking up a lot of the young folks they're looking at what's happening now, and then they can realize what we went through.
Yeah.
Because it's the same. It's the same thing. It's like time is, things are going backwards instead of forwards. But what I wanted to say, it was not being said about the health insurance, and they talk about socialism. What about, all of these people are against what we're talking about making insurance better so everybody can be covered like most other countries and in the industrial world. We're the only ones that don't take care of our people.
Agreed.
They want to do away with the VA thing, taking care of veterans. That's socialism. That's the government. The government runs the VA hospital and the clinics and everything else. And when the soldiers get shot on the battlefield, they take them to a military hospital that's nearby. That's what they do from Vietnam from Iraq over to Germany. They would take them over there to the military hospital. Then they'd ship them to the States because that's closer. But it's all government taking care of these people. And when the guys get out, they still have access to to the VA. And that's part of the contract that you sign. You're putting your life on the line, so at least they can take care of your physical and mental problems when you get home. So why don't any of these pundits that make millions of dollars on TV, CNN, all that stuff, why don't they bring that up?
Yeah, I agree. That's, yeah, because and it's an all volunteer army now, so I agree.
Yeah, I'm just saying that this was before even they had doing when I was drafted. No matter what the situation, how you got in the military, it's still they take care of you. And especially if you come out with any kind of, a lot of guys committing suicide now. I think they say it's like 20 a day commit suicide because PTSD. But the thing is that the thing I'm just trying to say is compare that with the conversation about Medicare and why they're so down on government. What's wrong with government taking care of people?
You know what? Reagan put that in people's minds, and it stuck.
Yeah.
That's when the evil of government was perpetrated by Ronald Reagan, and that has stuck. People now see government, as he said, government is the enemy. Mm-hmm. And so now people believe that the government is the enemy. So that's, and it's really ridiculous because so many people's lives have been made better because of the government. Like now, now they're trying to do away with regulations, and we have the best example right here in this county why regulation's important. When we were having that big housing boom, and they ran short of drywall, they ran out there and got that Chinese drywall that was not subject to any regulations.
Right, I remember that.
And how many houses did that destroy?
I remember that well.
I got a person I go to church with. Their house was one of those, a big, beautiful house with Chinese drywall that had to be redone. And that's because China has no regulations.
Right.
We have regulations to the point that no other country has, which makes us safe. If you get a bad batch of lettuce, we've seen that recently, they can tell you, because of regulations, what farm it came from, what lot it was, and they can go back and trace and find that. Now, are people they want to go do away with that?
You know why they're doing that, don't you?
Of course.
They don't want regulations so they can make more money, these industries. That's what Trump is doing, taking away all the regulations.
Of course, that's why.
Yeah, they don't want, they want these people to make as much money as they can because that's the way they think. They don't think about what harm is doing to the individual, to the people. The people don't count anymore. It's not the people anymore. That's why I tell everybody, I said, if you're not registered to vote, you're going to wake up and get registered now. Don't wait till the last day because you're going to have to be ready to vote when it comes time 2020 gets there. Be here before you know it.
Yeah.
So that's the message, and I try to bring that message to a lot of. I had a meeting, and I was talking to some ministers last weekend, and I said, you got to tell that to all the people in your church. It's not about you telling who to vote for. You just got to make sure they're all got their voter registration cards. That's all.
Yeah.
That's what we. I go back and I remember my life was threatened. When I was out there trying to get people to vote. So that's part of the struggle, and you can't forget that. And so it's part of what we're going through. And it's not it's not a joke, and it's not about interfering or bothering anybody else. We just have we know what our responsibility is, and we just have to do that and do it right.
Yeah. And
when you were talking about Medicare and the money that goes into the Social Security and all that, there was a time when the rich folks had to pay 90% of their taxes to the government.
That's true.
With Eisenhower, now that's a Republican president.
And you're absolutely right.
90%, and there wasn't no squawking. Nobody was crying and complaining. They just did it, and we didn't have any problems. You had all everything was going. He built the highways all over the country. He did interstate highways everywhere. From coast to coast, and that's why people can travel on pretty decent roads. But now, when the infrastructure is crumbling because what is Trump doing? He's cutting the tax on the millionaires and billionaires, and there's not enough money in the government to do infrastructure. So they're just letting it go by until somebody gets in there and wakes up the people and say, hey, wait a minute.
I don't
know.
We
got to fix this country back up again. We got to get it back rolling, get it
Jay,
back where it should be.
It's no different than taking care of your house.
Right.
If you don't paint your house and you don't make sure that your electric is in good shape, your house will fall apart. This country has infrastructure needs. I mean, Flint, Michigan should have been a wake-up call for a lot of us.
Oh, yeah.
They're not the only city in this country with old pipes in the ground. And I saw something earlier this week up in New York City. They're having a crisis. They believe there's lead in one of the barrels up there, and that they're trying to deal with. That's maintenance. That's from time to time. I gotta say, with Fort Pierce being the age that it is, you can't convince me that there's not some things that don't need to be rehabbed or revisited to make sure that the community's safe. But it won't be because people they don't want the government to spend any money.
Yeah.
But anyway,
like you said, they don't mind spending money on warfare. In other words, making sure that the war machines, the people that make all the tanks and stuff, they're going to be the profiteers, I call them. They're the ones that's getting over with all of this money going, like almost it's close to $1 trillion that they're spending on defense this past budget. Close to it.
Yes, you're right. But
and
you,
it's
sir.
ridiculous because,
I said thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Take care, man.
All right, you take care. I appreciate your call. Always appreciate Jay giving me a call. Now, I have been giving you reasons. Now, let me try to provide you with what I feel are some solutions to our current economic situation. And I hate when people say that you are a socialist because you want to make change. And I'm going to give you one quick story from a class I took when I was in Maryland, a marketing class. And the example was Converse, and I may have talked about this before. When I was a kid playing basketball, Converse was the most dominant sneaker in the country. Every pro, every college, every high school, you had to have a pair of Converse. That was the benchmark for a upscale basketball sneaker. And along comes Nike. And Nike was nipping at their heels, and Converse was like, I'm not going to do anything because I'm Converse. I don't have to do anything. And guess what happened? Converse is gone. It is now a play shoe, a shoe people buy to wear out as a fashion statement. It's lost its relevance from what it used to be. So change has to be continuously happening and evolving, because we evolve as a people. Our country evolved. Things change. Just listen, just think about in this lifetime, and I think I've said this once before, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but my first day as a trainee at Travelers, I walked into the clerical area, and the tops of all the desks in the clerical area were blue. And I told this story to a young person. He said, "Blue? Why were the tops of all the desks blue?" Because it was carbon paper. There was no photocopier. And they looked at me and said, "There was no photocopier?" I said, "No, there was no photocopier." And the ladies who had to make corrections on those forms, it was pure hell, because they had to use that typewriter to back up and stick a piece of tape in there and correct that typing. And they looked at me like, oh my, think about this. When I was in college and you wanted to call home, you had to fight with the people on the floor for the phone that was in the hallway, because there was no cell phones. And when the guys would get drunk, when some of the guys on my floor would get drunk, who were football players, they'd pull the phone out the wall. So now there was no phone on the floor in the dorm where you could make a phone call. And now everybody has a cell phone. Don't tell me things don't change. And you got kids now that have cell phones. Everybody can call everybody now. And now everybody can text everybody. You have to change. You have to change. All those people that when I first moved here, there was a guy I know that made a very good living off of phone booths. That's gone. Those are gone. He was making a fortune off of phone booths. That business is completely gone. Now, let me offer you some solutions. I don't want to just always be up here giving you the Grim Reaper speech and no solutions. Here's some solutions I suggest. Reinvigorate the unions. Ronald Reagan and the conservatives have convinced you, for the most part, that unions are useless. And there's only one reason why they oppose unions, is because the unions typically supported Democrats. Well, okay, that may be true, but does that mean that they need to be destroyed because they supported Democrats. The amount of money unions spend versus the lobbyists for insurance companies and financial houses is infinitesimal compared. But the unions were the ones that were helped create holiday pay, limitations on the number of hours that people could work, overtime pay that people could earn when they had to work beyond those hours. There's a place for unions in this country, and the unions give the little guy a voice. Now, I think that is an idea worth revisiting. Let me give you another one. And here's a pretty creative one. If a large corporation has people on food stamps, they should be surcharged for the employees that we're providing food stamps and Medicaid for. And the reason why they should be surcharged is because then the money won't come from us. If you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation and you're not paying enough money for your people to have health insurance, and that they don't make enough money to eat and they have to get food stamps, you should have to make a payment. Not saying you have to pay all of it, but they should be surcharged. If they work for Walmart and they have to get food stamps, Walmart should be surcharged for every single person that has to get food stamps or Medicaid. I know that's pretty radical. How many people disagree with that? If you disagree with that, let me know. Here's another one. Limit the amount of lobbying dollars that can be spent. It has to be a cap. So in a given year, you cannot spend, pick a number, beyond $250,000 on lobbying, whereas now they spend millions. Argue with me if you will about the number. I don't care. We can argue about the number. What's the proper number? That's a good argument to have. But there should be a limitation on how much money can be spent on lobbying in a given year. And another suggestion, there has to be thoughtful regulation. Regulation shouldn't run amok. I can agree with that. But there has to be regulation for our own safety. OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, has made buildings safe. That's a regulation that was put in. Our environment is perishable. We need to have regulations to make sure that our environment, our rivers, streams, are safe. And they recently now did away with the law protecting endangered species. I don't get that. You know, if you remember, not long ago, the bald eagle was endangered species, and they implemented regulations to make sure that that was our national bird, that they be saved, and they were, and they're plentiful. There was a time when the buffaloes, you remember that, Cliff, when the buffaloes were endangered, and they made laws for that, and now they've come back. There's a place for regulation within our country. So for all of you that are anti-regulation, just think about that for a second, and understand how safe our lives are because of regulation. If there's a bad, like, you remember a few years back when the Tylenol scare, when they found a Tylenol that had been cracked open, my word, because of regulation, they were able to go back, pinpoint the factory that came from with the lot number, and were able to go to every drugstore in this country and tell them to pull lot number so-and-so Tylenol off the shelf.
Amazing.
Right?
Absolutely.
And you remember that,
We
right?
all remember that, yeah. We were afraid to buy Tylenol for a long time afterwards.
Right. But because of regulation, and people say, wow, there's too much regulation, it costs too much money. I don't know. I wonder how many people would have died if they hadn't have done that. What do you think, Cliff? How many people might have died if they didn't go back there and pull?
If they weren't able to, but they were able to. That's the wonderful thing about it. They were able to go in there and pull them all.
Yes. Yes. And when they had the lettuce about 2 years ago, they had a bad batch of lettuce that was infected with, I forget what the name.
E. coli?
Yes, that was affected with E. coli. They were able to go in there and find that lettuce and know which which supermarkets it went to.
Produce sections,
Yeah, and pull it out.
Wow.
That's regulation. You want that? Did you want to eat some lettuce with E. coli on there?
Not in a fresh garden salad, no.
No, I think not. That don't sound appetizing, does it?
Because we're a little suspicious as to how the E. coli got into the lettuce, but
yes,
that's beside the point, though.
Yes, exactly. But anyway, so as we're moving more toward 2020, please open up your mind. If you hear a Democrat suggesting that there needs to be change in our economic system, that doesn't make them a socialist. That means there needs to be change. And I've already showed you that there's a need for change because our environment is changing at a rapid rate and unbelievable. When I just think about all the things that have been discovered since I've been on this earth that have changed the way our lives are, it is absolutely amazing. So what makes us think that we should not change our economic model? It needs change. And so to resist that does not make a lot of sense. And we shouldn't be, if you heard the tape I played a couple weeks ago when we were talking about this by Reverend Barber, and he said, if the public had received raises equal to what the corporations have received over the years, people would be making an average of $33 an hour.
Wow.
Think about that. Wow. But anyway, I hope I gave you something to think about, and I hope you really take some of the information that I've given you and give it some thought. And I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in. God bless and be safe. And I will see you next week, right here on Wednesday, for the African American Scene.
The African American Scene, presented each week by Howard Insurance of Port St. Lucie and hosted by Rudy Howard. It's heard every Wednesday evening in the 6 p.m. hour. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, celebrating over 25 years and counting.